Hello, Hank Azaria. Hi, Oliver Platt. I am so excited to be here with both of you today. My name is Jackie Bonnet. I was born and raised in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I graduated from Tufts last year, class of 2020, and I major in theater. And I will be starting my master's in fine arts and acting in New York City at the Actor Studio Drama School. So, as an aspiring actress, this is a true honor. I remember when I got into Tufts, the first thing I did was Google best actors that have graduated from Tufts University. And your names popped out. So this is unreal. This is great.
Just wondering
Awesome.
who did they say who they preferred in the
Don't,
list? Who
don't
was
embarrass
No,
Oliver?
him. Jackie, don't
no.
embarrass him. Just say they were exactly on the same level.
All right.
Same level. It was both of your names. I'm not going to say who was first. That's it.
And the
We're going to
nominees
leave it
for the
there.
best actor who attended Tufts University are.
So I hear you guys are really good friends. So I really want to know, how did you guys meet? How did this great friendship come about?
We actually
Well,
met
I
in the Arena Theater, didn't we?
in the Arena Theater, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I saw this guy walk. He opened up the door and he was walking down like through our sort of lobby. And this was this is the what is it? Is it like 1980, Hanky? Something like that.
Probably 81,
We're
1981.
talking like stonewashed jeans, and he had those high top Reeboks with the big pillow ankles, you know. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And but the thing that was impossible to ignore is how I don't know. We just became very good friends very quickly. He was at that time in his life, Hank could do like literally had committed to memory uh, every major sort of like Monty Python routine, and he's also as we know now he's a gifted, extraordinarily gifted impressionist, and
Mm-hmm.
he would just sort of unleash that stuff, but in a very unself-conscious way. People who are like doing that all the time, it actually can be a little bit annoying. But with Hank, it just like came out of nowhere, and it was astonishing, frankly. But we just actually connected like most of my closest friends in the world. We kind of connected on a submoronic level immediately, you know.
Yeah,
And
I had heard about Oliver before I met him because he
Oh,
kind of was like
really?
this. Yeah,
you
he
know, due
was.
to my legendary status, right? Just
He
precisely.
was. He
What,
really did have a
yeah.
legendary status in the Arena Theater.
Oh,
Like,
come
have you met
on.
Oliver yet? And it's true. Like Oliver, he was kind of known as the best actor around there. I was like, no, I haven't met Oliver
Cool.
yet. And then, so I was a little bit intimidated to meet him. But then, Oliver's right. We connected on this goofball, make each other laugh level almost immediately. And I don't want to embarrass Oliver, but I've said this many times. He really did inspire me. He was the first person I knew well that was that good at acting. I couldn't
Oh, that's
believe it. I mean, there were a couple of people who were really great, like Andy Polk was there too. But for myself, I had to really, I had to learn a lot about the craft of acting. And I'm sure Oliver would say he
mm-hmm.
did too. But Oliver was kind of, in my mind anyway, just as good back then as he is today. And it was pretty inspiring to watch him work. So he was my first celebrity friend even before he was a celebrity. Let's put it that
Oh my God, that
way.
Hanky, that's so kind. It is. I'm deeply
It's
embarrassed,
true.
and the handsome payment for that little screed right there. It's in the mail.
And now that we're talking about Tufts, I really want to know, do you have one best memory from your time at Tufts? Like when you think about Tufts, you think about that memory.
The first thing that pops in my brain when I remember school is thinking about the Arena
Mm-hmm.
Theater, probably because I spent most of my time in there, which I
Same.
really like voted with my feet. Yeah, I mean, I was interested in psychology and journalism and acting when I got to
Okay.
Tufts, and it became apparent to me within about a few months of being there that for one reason or another, I was mostly in the Arena Theater.
Mm.
And Oliver was one of the first friends I made. There were a few others, and they became my closest people.
We threaded this needle where we actually took it. We all took it incredibly seriously, but we had such a good time,
Mm-hmm.
which I think it's so important in life and especially in work. Anyway, Hank's right. It absolutely. We had this. What I thought was, it was unexpected for me. Like in terms of this group of people there when we were there, we had a lot of could be extraordinarily irreverent, especially like during a long tech rehearsal.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there was some
Those
silly,
tech rehearsals.
ridiculous things that went on.
How do you guys get into acting? Did you always know you want to be an actor, or did that develop later in life?
Well, like Oliver said, by the time I got to school, I was a mimic and interested in comedy, and thought it might be fun to check out the acting thing. Probably not long into freshman year, from being around Oliver and guys like Andy Polk and Joel Bischoff and Barry Edelstein, all of whom have gone on to have careers. I had nothing to compare it to at the time, but it was actually quite a professional environment, really. It's the experience of doing a professional play is very much like what we did there. I didn't realize at the time. And so I definitely got the bug even more than I realized. To the point where by the time I graduated, said, well, let me try this. While I'm young, let me give it a shot. Not expecting to actually, I figured I'd be back at grad school for psychology. I was going to give myself till I was 28. That was the age I had in mind.
Acting for me became, my father was a diplomat, and I grew up moving all over the Far East when I was a kid. Every 2 or 3 years. And it's tough to be a new kid all the time. And I gravitated towards acting, because I discovered that I loved it, but it became a strategy for making the new kid thing easier. I would I'd be at a new school, I'd go out for a play, and then you'd have friends, right?
Yes.
But here's the thing, and it became very important to me, actually too important to me, if you will, when I was growing up. But it was a crucial survival strategy, and so yes, I always I'm going to be an actor when I grow up. I had absolutely not a clue what that meant.
Now, my next question is, how do you think a Tufts education helped you in your career?
For me, it was should I go to a conservatory or undergrad? And all the smart money said, for God's sake, get an education. Go and get it. And so that's why Tufts was it was a great liberal arts school that also had a really highly regarded drama department. Because of the way the drama major was constructed back then, is that if you were primarily interested in acting, it didn't matter. They made you direct the play, they made you build a set, they made you do lights, they made you and what was crucial about this is it gave you what we do is nothing if not collaborative, and giving you a sense for how important the other person's job was, to your job. I mean, it's just, you do the basic math. It really just, it set me up anyway in very good stead for working in a collaborative, industry.
Yeah, definitely. It's the same now. I did lights, I did sound, I did set, I did everything.
Apart from what Oliver just said, and the experience in the actual theater, which was pretty lovely and real, the liberal arts focus of Tufts, that you can really kind of follow your academic muse wherever you like, was a big deal. And this maybe didn't come into play till a decade or a decade and a half after I left school, but the creation of a personal point of view, of being informed. I think early in our careers, right, Oliver, you're not really in a position, except through the subtleties of your work, to sort of have a point of view. You know what I mean? It kind of comes out by osmosis through your, I don't know, it just happens sort of unconsciously. And then later on, as an adult, a lot of what you think and feel starts to really color what you're doing. And that so much of that was formed by what I learned at school, how my mind was opened at school. It went from an intellectual exercise to a visceral performance one after a while.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. So, I have some individual questions of what you guys are doing currently. Let's start with Oliver. So, I love your show, Chicago Med, and I know you guys been filming during the pandemic, so I really want to know, how has that experience been like? What are the challenges? You talked a little bit about doing some scenes on Zoom. That's crazy. Can you talk more about that?
there is not a hospital in the world that you were walking into, especially last fall when we started shooting. And the stuff we knew was going to air in a matter of months at the most, where people aren't wearing face masks all day, every day. And yet you can't have that in a drama. You just can't. And so what we did is first of all, they did the COVID ward, which was extraordinary and really at least threw down a marker about how seriously but then for the ER, we constructed all of these. There was always long lines of people getting tested, and we had signs everywhere. And they even constructed, and this is all from real science, this like infrared blue light booth that you walked in to make sure. Anyway, the point is where we didn't have masks on, where, let's face it, in the real world we would have. We went to great lengths to establish what looked like a safe perimeter, which wasn't, again, and that concept is actually a viable concept. And you ask about production, that's exactly what we did to be able to gather 200 people. Yeah. As Hanky will tell you, there's a certain flow to being on a set, and you're also in very close contact with people, right? And especially people around the camera and the hair and makeup people. And so there was all these, masks on, masks off, face shields. And the thing is, as actors, we're the only people who were ever actually taking our masks off. And at the beginning, it was just a little scary, but they also invested a huge amount of money in testing. We were all literally tested. We were tested 5 times a week. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, every day.
Wow, that's crazy. Oh. Wow. Well, thank you for that. Hank, now I'm going to move on to you. So I know that your podcast, Brockmire, aired yesterday. Congrats. Yay. With your guest, Charles Barkley, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Whoa, Hanky, no kidding.
Jim, you didn't know that? Jim Brockmire podcast, Oliver. Check it out.
Oh, dude. It was Charles Barkley was your first guest?
Jim Brockmire's first guest, Oliver. I could never book Charles Barkley on my own. Jim Brockmire brought him right into it.
Oh my God, I love the
What a genius.
It's so good.
What a genius idea.
Well, it was one of the nice things about this pandemic, if that's even a viable phrase, was that it gave you time to think of alternative entertainment possibilities. And like my Simpsons job, which I've been continuing, got easier. I've been doing it from home now. Wow. And I started doing a lot of interviews, much like this one, even if you go on Colbert or Seth Meyers, wherever you do it this way now. And I appeared as Jim Brockmire in so many sports talk shows and other shows that I said, well, why not just reverse it? We had gotten really used to writing comedy in that format, just basically taking sports topics and making fun of who we were talking to and the sport itself. So it worked. We did a few tests of that, and it worked out well. And we have mixed like Charles Barkley. Rich Eisen was my next guest. Oh, Ben Stiller, the lovely Ben Stiller. Don Cheadle will be joining us. Dan Patrick, Jamel Hill, Joy Taylor. Now this is breaking. Oh, I probably can't. Somebody very exciting, but it's not confirmed yet. But anyway,
okay,
so
it's me. No, just kidding.
It's not.
I want to bring this full circle, if you will. One of the remarkable things about Brockmire, about the character, to me, actually encompasses exactly what I'm talking about. When you hear Brockmire is actually modeled. Isn't it like a bunch of, but sort of, isn't it Vin Scully more than anybody, Hank?
Well, it's the generic baseball announcer voice of the 1970s.
Right, but the point is, you would say, okay, well, he's doing like a bit. I mean, it's a very extreme but completely believable, and yet when you look at Brockmire, Hank's performance is so extraordinary within this sort of, like, let's say, broader character. It's an extraordinary, nuanced, moving. Character, and I think that there's not that many people who could do that. And by the way, obviously not that Hank can't do like Hank can do.
There are 7 of us, Oliver. 7 of us who can do it. We have meetings once a month.
I disagree. I beg to differ. Anyway, I just thought that it just occurred to me that was a really perfect example of what I was talking about. In terms of spanning the decades of Mr. Azaria's extraordinary body of work.
Thank you, Oliver. That means a lot coming from you. And I can't think of going out on a better note than that.
But one last last question, really, really fast. What advice do you have for alumni like me that want to start out in the business and just want to do what you love, acting? What advice do you have?
Keep doing it. Like they say, writers write. Actors act, whether it's an improv class, an acting class, a small production, do something on YouTube, put together a little film. There's so many more opportunities to do little things that are creative than Oliver and I had when we were coming up, and just keep doing it. Whatever it is, anything you want to try, stand up, anything performative that you can think of that you want to explore. Don't limit yourself that way. And then I always say, show business will find you. It picks you. You don't really pick it. If you make yourself available and keep putting yourself out there, you'll find your place in it, for sure. And really the student aspect of it never stops, I don't think, right? We're still learning, right, Oliver? Like always.
The one piece of advice that I always find myself giving, people who are starting out who ask that question is to make sure that you stay in touch with your enjoyment of the process. And by that, I mean, it could be tough. There's obviously a lot of rejection. And the thing for me is that, like, I got excited about auditions and I didn't focus on, and I was able to put myself, obviously you audition for something, you want the part, but what I would psych myself into a place where I'm going to, I see this as an opportunity to perform, and I'm going to celebrate this material, because it can get tough, and just make sure that you're on a sort of elemental day-to-day basis, staying in touch with your enjoyment of the process, and not focus don't focus on what isn't happening, focus on what is, and be proactive about it. Like, I think Hank's advice is also excellent.